These are the 5 hardiest corals that I've ever kept, perfect for beginners. I've been in the hobby keeping corals for about 12 months now, and I have failed at quite a few corals. My tank has crashed quite a few times, and I've had fluctuations in my minerals and levels in my reef tank. But there's been 5 absolute ballers that have shined through and keep pumping no matter what. So I want to share those with you guys today so you don't go out and spend a bunch of money on the corals that are a little bit harder to keep and fail on them while you're in the learning part of your process. Coral number 1, and my personal favorite, is the Ricordea coral. In Australia, they're a little bit more on the expensive side of the hobby for sure. With Ricordea, I've found that the lighting requirements is massively vast. You can have a dimly lit tank or a really beaming tank, and they tend to do relatively well because you can spot feed them. It means that because they're not purely reliant on photosynthesis for their energy, you can give them food, they tend to do better. And because of the fact that they close up so effectively, personally, they're the first thing to tell me that something's not doing well in the tank, that there's some kind of a fluctuation. Because Recordia have so many color changes and shape changes day to day, I actually use Recordia coral as my litmus test to see if anything's going wrong or anything's going right in my tank. If my Recordia is really extended, looking really thick, and the colors have come out to play, I know that that tank's pretty stable and things are doing fine. The moment that that Recordia gets thinner or the colors start to dull a little bit, it's instantly time to test, see what's going wrong. That's saying a lot because my tank right now is only 20 liters. So you can imagine a beginner in the hobby in a 20-liter tank with lots of corals, the levels can fluctuate very, very fast. So by using the Recordia coral as my tester, not only has it stayed alive the whole way through my fish keeping journey, but it's also allowed all of my other corals to stay alive because it's what tells me that the rest of the corals are in danger. Coral number 2 that's almost unkillable are Zoas, Zoanthids. These bad boys are an absolute staple in the hobby. If you don't have them right now, it's a matter of time before you get them in your tank. The reason Zoas tend to stay alive a little bit more, I find, is because they are photosynthetic, which means you don't have to be feeding them all the time, and they're quite tolerant of nitrate levels in your tank as well. So they can handle nitrates up higher above 10, even close to 20 parts per million in a reef tank, which most other corals are really suffering at that stage. So when it comes to fluctuation of nitrates, they can handle it. And depending on what variety or strain, which there's limitless varieties and strains you get, the lighting requirements can be quite dull all the way through to beaming light on top of these things, and they'll be fine. You just need to find the sweet spot for your Zoa, which if your levels are all even, everything's all good, experiment by placing it at different points in your reef, and then once you find the right point, glue. The third coral that I find is bulletproof and is similar to the Recordia coral where it starts to change its behavior when things go wrong in your tank is Duncan, Duncanopsamia, one of my absolute favorites, because when you get these things growing right, not only do they resemble a tree, when they're healthy, they're fully spread out, the color can look amazing on Duncans as well, and they're perfect to spot feed too, which means they also share that same toughness as Recordia do. Now, Duncans, just like Recordia, do have the drawback of having quite a strong sting. So when it comes to coral warfare, you've got to make sure they're away from all the other corals in your tank. But apart from that, you'll find that they respond first when things go wrong in your tank as well by withdrawing, or their tendrils tend to be thinner, less kind of spread out into the tank. You know something's going wrong when your Recordia or your Duncan are acting different. You'll find as well that almost all of the corals on this list are beautiful. So entry-level corals that are quite bulletproof, that are also, serve the double purpose of being really visually appealing. They fuel the love for the hobby, and that for me was one of the biggest things that kept me going, even though some of my less sturdy corals didn't make it. Fourth coral worth mentioning on this list is GSP, Green Star Polyp. Now there's quite a few different varieties of this one. I think I found one called Toxic something, I don't even know. The color contrast on that GSP in particular was quite awesome. The more colorful, the harder to find that your coral is, and the more niche that your coral is, the harder it is to keep alive as well. That doesn't mean that there aren't awesome coloration corals just in the basic level of each of these corals. I found that the moment my GSP goes really, really well, the alkalinity in my tank starts to dip quite a lot. If there's large dips in your alkalinity, you know things are doing well and you need to start dosing and dosing and dosing. So ramping up your dosing. When that first started happening to me, I really got scared. Now I know that's not an alarming thing. That means your coral keeping is starting to really dial in and your corals are feeling safe enough to start consuming all of the elements that are around your tank. So GSP, fluorescent looking coloration, beautiful flow in the wave maker, such a good addition and really, really hard to kill. It doesn't mean that they're really, really hard to retract. I find that GSP will pull all the way in and just end up being sort of a purple crust if things are going wrong in your tank, but they recover fast the moment things go well. So they can be quite a lot more tolerant and a whole lot less susceptible to damaging themselves in toxic water environments. Great for a beginner. And the last coral on the list, I had quite a few that I needed to choose from, but I chose this one because of how rapidly it grows and how much of a learning curve that you can get from corals like this, Sinularia or the finger leather coral. Most leather corals are quite hardy, sturdy corals. Sinularia I found grew even when other corals were totally retracted. So I'm not sure which of the elements or like traces that it liked the most. Obviously it wasn't reliant on all the traces being perfect, you know, cal-alk mag being totally spot on or salinity being absolutely dialed in 24/7, but when one of those things was going wrong, it didn't always suffer. As a matter of fact, it even grew. Plus, it covers a large surface area, so it grows quite fast and covers a large area in your tank, which makes you happy when things like that happen in the hobby. Now, I've gone from that micro tank, learned for a whole year, and I'm diving straight into this tank right here, which is over 200 liters. So I'm essentially taking my small coral tank, which is only 20 liters, that I have sort of honed my skills with, and I'm diving headfirst into this tank right here, which is currently going through its ugly stage. This is about to be a coral haven. I've gone out and gotten myself the Pro Coral Keeper stack, which just happens to be the entire Coral Essentials range, and I'm going to apply all of the knowledge that I've developed into this tank to try and grow the coolest, quickest growing corals that I can possibly manage and get those things looking super, super healthy. So I hope this video helped, guys. Subscribe if you want to watch that build or if this video helped you. And if you've got any other awesome corals to note that are bulletproof in your opinion, let me know in the comments below because that's what I'm going to get next.